Hi everyone, and welcome to Tech for Good Pills by Nesta Italia. I am Giacomo Mariotti, and I will be your host tonight. So tonight's episode of Tech for Good Pills is one of a series of interviews with founders and practitioners of the Tech for Good community to bring together people that are passionate about technology and are using it to tackle the world's biggest social and environmental challenges. So the series is really designed to be a way for founders and practitioners to share their experience and their best practices that they've learned along their journeys with other people from the community. So we will be together for 30 minutes and we will be able to interact with our guest tonight by asking some questions from my side, but also by picking up some questions that you may have, and you are free to post them on whatever platform you're following us from. So just add your question to the comments and we will be able to see it and ask it to our guest tonight. So the interview will be recorded and available on Nesta Italia's YouTube channel after the live event. Italian subtitles will also be added for our Italian followers. So our guest tonight is Alessandro Piscopo from the BBC, and the title of our interview tonight is How Can Artificial Intelligence Help to Inform, Educate, and Entertain the Public? So let me welcome our guest, Alessandro Piscopo, data scientist at the BBC.
Thank you, Giacomo, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you here tonight. So I think, you are a data scientist at the BBC. I think the BBC doesn't need any introduction. Everybody, I think, around the world knows the organization, and I think I would like to start from how technology and data science fit in within something like the BBC. So I think everybody knows the organization, and its renowned mission is to serve the public and by informing, educating, and entertaining. And historically, it's been doing this by serving all audiences, providing impartial and high-quality output and services. But I think it's interesting to notice that a role like a data scientist probably didn't exist at the BBC just 10 years ago. And I think this is a reflection of how the world of information, education, and entertainment has changed a lot in the lifetime of the BBC. So I wanted to start by asking you a little bit more about how the BBC's mission has changed in this environment, and how specifically you're using technology and artificial intelligence to advance it.
Yes, thank you for your question, Giacomo. Well, first of all, I need to start with a disclaimer. Just must say that whilst I'm going to be talking about the BBC and the work we do, just all views that I will express are my own, and they don't represent the official position of the BBC. Furthermore, I will bring a perspective about what the BBC does, but I will work primarily under just the point of view what my team, which is called Data Lab, does. So moving to your question, well, as you said, the BBC is a public service broadcaster. What does that mean? What does public service mean? Well, as you say, the BBC mission is to act in the public interest, and it does that by providing services that inform, educate, and entertain. So this mission hasn't changed throughout the history of the BBC. So it remains these as it was yesterday, and it was probably about a century ago when it was founded. We can expand on these by just looking at the public purposes of the BBC. These are set by the Royal Charter, and although the Royal Charter has changed, is renewed every 11 years. These public purposes and the mission remain the same. So just for these purposes are, we must provide impartial news and information, because we must help our audiences engage and understand the world. We must support learning. Just think probably is little known in Italy, but beyond like BBC News and like the like natural history, documentary, and sport, and then so on and so forth. The BBC has its children channel, but it has also its educational content, like there's BBC Bite Size, and it's used by students all across the UK to prepare for their exams. But furthermore, our output must be creative, must be high quality and distinctive. You must be able to tell when that something has been produced by the BBC because of its high quality standards. And then, just as I said, we are a public service broadcaster. This means that we serve a community, and in particular, this community is the people within the United Kingdom. And one of our purposes is to reflect, represent, and serve the diverse community within the United Kingdom, and also to reflect the United Kingdom values and culture. So I would say that at the core of what we do, there's trust of our audiences, but also there's diversity, and there's like being independent, impartial, and honest. Now, how we achieve this is set out by a set of editorial guidelines. Just moving to the second part of your question, what has AI to do with all this? And just another little step back. Think about it. The BBC every week reaches 91% of the UK adult population. And also every week it reaches almost 500 million people worldwide. So we have this very big audience, and we have also lots of content, like thousands of items published every day. And in this context, at this scale, AI is key to ensure that each and every audience member is provided with a service that complies with our public purposes, which complies with our mission, which is to inform them, educate them, and entertain them. And so, I've just said, like, the BBC produces thousands of content every day. So users have limited time and attention span. And just how do we get from like users to the content? How do we just match them? And this is what my team does mostly. And basically, it's recommendations. Data-driven recommendations, automated recommendations. Recommendations that allow us to just provide each user with the most relevant and engaging content for each of them. And that's what's needed, at least in my point of view, to get to the BBC of the future, in which each and every one of our audience members have the information that they need, that it interests them, that is worth knowing when and where they need them, from local context, like just you are in your neighborhood, in your town, and you need news about that environment, to a global context. You are interested in US politics, well, you will probably be shown more about it. And just what can possibly go wrong with that? Well, lots of things. We could show each user only just a very niche of content they're interested in. So we have to address this by just increasing diversity. We could just put together a piece of content that suggests like a partial view of the world, and so we need to strive to be impartial. But also, we could have bad recommendation. As I said, just one of our purposes is provide high quality output. And so we need to improve quality, work side by side with the editorial, and work with them to achieve to follow these editorial guidelines. And so just the very last bit just of my answer, we are just overwhelmed by information from all sides. from social media, other media outlets, and it's key that for the BBC, but also for the audiences, that the BBC is a trusted source of information. We can't screw up, like in working with AI, because just imagine this: there are considered deep fakes. Let's just leave fake news aside. Consider deep fakes. You have these fake videos. You remember there was one, this famous one with Obama saying things that he never said, and like the importance of public service organizations like the BBC is that people who should be able to go to the BBC and check if something is true, if something is actually a deep fake, if something happens really or not. And yeah, just building trusted AI, bringing the information user needs when they need it is key in this context.
Thank you, Alessandro. And I think you talked about some of the things that can go wrong using AI. And I know that one interesting approach about the way you use AI at the BBC is that you adhere to ethical best practices, and you've even developed a checklist to ensure that every AI application that you develop inside the BBC follows these ethical principles. So AI ethics is something that is talked about a lot, but it's interesting to see, and it would be interesting to hear from you, how it works in practice, and why you think having this type of operational process is important.
Sure. Well, like as well as I've mentioned earlier, like as well as all content we produce at the BBC, the technology we build must incorporate our values and priority. Just our output must be trustworthy and help audiences understand the world around them. It must reflect, like I say, this diversity, adhere to the highest standard of quality, independency, and impartiality. And so, just you work in tech. You're a technologist, so you're probably aware when you work or as a team on a piece of technology, it's really hard. Just you tend to drift, and be captured by the more technical aspects. It's really hard to stay focused on the high level principles. Just when you need to get down to the nitty gritty of the development work, you just lose track of the big picture because you have this bug to fix. You have these particular metrics that you want to develop. There are always just different aspects, and I don't know, something that doesn't work in the code, and so on and so forth. But as I said, just all our output must comply with our editorial guidelines, and therefore, just my team and with the collaboration of just other people from outside our team, and we have developed something called MLab, Machine Learning Engine Principles. This is a set of principles which every machine learning approach we develop should follow. Don't think it's a hard guideline, just something that people must do, but it's something like people should look at and should serve as a guide. And at its core, there are values, audiences, and responsibility, accountability. We need to be transparent about what we do. We need to put our values, just as BBC values, at the center of what we do, and we need to put our audiences as they are at the center, at the core of what we do. And now, so the objective of these is delivering, first of all, distinctively public service AI applications, but as I say, just maintaining audience trust and kind of anticipate future scrutiny. These, just I said about the principle, but I come to the practical part. These principles have been translated into something called MLab checklist, And this is a set of prompts to turn our ML principles into practice. It's basically a list of questions for a team to work through them and review. As you go, as you develop something, you just look at the set of questions and kind of check if everything is, if you consider determined aspects. As it's been developed just with an interdisciplinary group. So we had editorial people, legal people, product people, just all sorts of people, just, well, tech people, of course, data scientists, data engineer. And it rose from best practices within the BBC and the industry. So I made some examples of what we got in there. Just there's like a section about scoping and planning an ML project. Something that's I find really interesting as a question is one that is like, do we really need machine learning to address this problem? Which I think just we always should ask ourselves this question. When you use like machine learning, the first thing is, do we need it? Well, and sometimes the answer might surprise you. We have editorial values, we have data privacy, and then some more technical bits, training, testing, documentation of the model, and so on and so forth. And so far, well, we use across our team. I personally just work with it in developing a content-to-content recommender for BBC News. And well, the development process of this checklist is incremental. So just as we use it, we provide feedback, and then we just update it and add to it.
Okay, now it's very interesting. So it keeps you in check, and it brings also the eyes of kind of the collective who's developed the guideline right next to you and helps you develop in the right way.
Exactly. It's more just a way it prompts you to think rather than telling you do this or do that.
Okay, very interesting. And so at this point, I usually ask our guests to reflect a little bit on their journey in working in tech and using it for to provide impact and improve our society. To share a best practice, something that they believe other people in the Tech for Good community can leverage in the work they do. So, would you like to share something?
Yeah, well, you mean kind of like some experience that I think just I would like to share with people. Yeah, well, there is something. Do you know what a polymath is? A polymath is is a term to refer to individuals whose knowledge like spans across multiple fields. This is just kind of a general definition of the term, but a more particular definition is we refer to polymath as the thing about polymath, about some Renaissance or Enlightenment thinkers who had extensive knowledges in many disciplines, in many subjects. Like Leonardo da Vinci was a polymath, Leibniz was a polymath. So my opinion, and this is just personal, is that in recent years, it seemed like the emergence of a new phenomenon, and there are these sorts of computer science, data scientist polymath. What do I mean with that? In some environment, there's kind of sort of a feeling that there's this kind of primacy of machine learning or AI, and basically it's just people get some data, throw an algorithm at it, and they think they will solve any problem. Well, I believe just this is not the case. Just there are no polymaths, or at least polymaths like Leonardo da Vinci or Leibniz. They are born just every once in like centuries. I think that any machine learning or AI approach or AI-based approach must be backed by domain knowledge to understand the assumptions behind the model, to understand the result, interpret the results, and so on and so forth. So I'll just, after this digression, I will come back to what we do to give a concrete example. In our team, we work very closely with a number of professional figures, especially editorial, but not only. And so it's a combined effort. Product people help defining the issues we want to address and the type of a solution we need, like just where does this solution go? How we work with UX people to define how this solution will be fed to people. Editorial people provide guidance about how to comply with editorial guidelines. They help us evaluate our models with giving us some insights that like metrics would hardly be able to provide us. And of course, like data scientists are those that provide the tech knowledge to find the right algorithm to achieve what we want. And data engineer just help us setting like data pipelines. And just a concrete example, we worked on the development of these BBC News recommendation algorithm, and it was just a back and forth of between editorial, product people, and data scientists, and without that, it couldn't have happened.
Okay, thank you, Alessandro. So my take is so the importance of a multidisciplinary team. There is you can't do it alone.
Exactly.
Okay. So I think you mentioned a couple of times this this recommendation system that you've developed in your team to provide BBC users with the right content. I think the right content obviously can have a million different meanings, and I think just for everyone who's following us, a recommendation system, is something that is a system that proposes a specific content depending on the individual's profile and preferences. So they're everywhere nowadays, and I think one example that probably you can think of is the way that something like Netflix in the for-profit world uses the information it has about you to recommend you the next movie. So I wanted to ask you what recommending the right content means for a public service player like the BBC, in contrast to what a for-profit organization might use recommendation systems for.
Well, I don't know if this is recommending the right content, but we tried. So just, I think it's all boils down to a matter of priorities. Whatever we do is just, we have a commitment to the public service. So just, for instance, Netflix or just any other provider, they probably have different priorities. They want to just increase click-through rate. They want to increase user retentions. And it's not that these are not important things for us, but these are not the main thing. So, for instance, when we worked on the first just recommendation algorithm we worked in our team, we just made trade-offs between like accuracy measures like NDCG and diversity measures. And so just because like being accurate and increasing just as much as possible the number of clicks wasn't at all, and we wanted to show user the most possible and the most possibly diverse content we could. We don't want to inadvertently breach impartiality, so we apply a number of business rules to ensure our recommendations would not risk to be too much one-sided. We know that like there are sensitive topics. When we recommend something about in counter recommendations, that starting from something about mental health, suicide, the Holocaust, like this kind of topics, we don't want to risk putting these type of content together with light touch content because it would be inappropriate. So it's it's a range of metrics that we don't look just at accuracy, but we'll look at just a broad range of metrics, and to ensure that we take care of different aspects. But also we have editorial on board in order to help us remove any risk to inappropriate recommendations or any list to breaching our editorial guidelines.
Okay, thank you, Alessandro. In the meantime, a question has popped up from someone who is following us. I think the question is about kind of filter bubbles that you mentioned earlier and polarization. So, kind of first of all, what they are for who doesn't know them, and how you can tackle them.
So, well, filter bubbles. The term comes from a famous book. I think it was 2012. I'm not sure about the year. From Eli Pariser, and basically this comes from some observations he made that recommendations might lead people to kind of get into a kind of loop in which they see always the same kind of content, and they get kind of trapped in these. There was this famous case of just YouTube in the past in which they think that it's its recommendation system contributed to radicalizing people. And sorry, the second part of the question was, how do we address this?
Yeah.
Well, how do we address it? In the majority of cases, we were so far on content-to-content recommendations, so they are kind of less prone to bring people into just looking only a type of content they like. And but as I said, something that we've taken so far very much into consideration was the diversity of our results. We don't want our results to be just about the same thing. You don't want to get too deep into the same topic. For instance, our editorial colleagues insist very much on giving our audiences breadth and depth. And so sometimes they were just coming back to us saying, okay, we need more breadth. And just imagine you need to interpret that and making an algorithm out of that. It was kind of the fun part of the work. But yes, basically we increased diversity, and we looked at different metrics than just accuracy. Okay,
perfect. Thank you so much, Alessandro, for being with us today, and for sharing your experience and the best practices you've learned in your journey at the BBC. So thanks again for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. So I think today, so we close our live, and so Tech for Good Pills is going to be back soon. So as I mentioned, you will find the recording of this live event on YouTube, on Nesta Italia's channel, and as soon as we close the live stream, you'll be able to see also the appointments that we have coming up with our next guests. So thanks again for being with us tonight, and good evening.